subscription, some that have ended. Give us a picture of whether all of them are getting the same amount of interest. Is it that anything is working right now?
Right, as you mentioned, at least this week we've had about 8 IPOs. Talking about today itself, we have 3 IPOs that will close, and then we have tomorrow Azad Engineering that will close tomorrow, and today we have one that's open. So focusing on the subscription number for that matter, actually all of them have been oversubscribed till now, apart from Innova Captime, which has opened today. So we'll obviously have to wait till the end of the day how the subscription numbers look like. But as you mentioned, even after so many companies coming up with their IPOs, we are seeing that interest from retail as well as non-institutional investors, just going and chasing these IPOs, and many of them actually fundamentally also, when we talk to analysts to understand if one should be subscribing to the issues, right? So many of these companies that they say are actually fundamentally, doing good. So, they are actually betting on many of these companies. So I'm going to stick to 3 IPOs that are closing today. One is Mufti Owner Credo Brands. Now it's subscribed over 11 times, and again led by NIIs, which saw over 14 times, and retail, which saw over 13 times. Happy Forgings, for that matter, also actually was subscribed over 13x as of 1 p.m. on last day, again led by NIIs. And RBG's Jewelers is subscribed over 10x, led by retail. Now I want to mention this, that Motison's Jewelers was another one that was open for subscription and closed yesterday, and it was subscribed over 159 times. So it will be very interesting to see where RBZ stands there for that matter, because obviously they will be compared based on after they get listed. Azad Engineering, as I mentioned, is closing tomorrow, and it is subscribed over 6 times, as of 1 p.m. on day. 2, again led by non-institutional investors, and retail investors obviously have not been behind on this. Innova IPO that has opened today, overall subscribed only 0.4x, but it's still 1 p.m. right now, first day. So we'll have to see how it plays, because as far as the valuation is concerned, analysts see that the issue is fairly priced, but because we saw like the sudden market fall yesterday, and also so many IPOs and listings happening, so we'll have to see if there's much change that's going to be happening for this IPO as well or not.
Thanks a lot, Saloni. And that's not it for this year. We do have more in the lineup. Moving on, more market opinion coming in. Saurabh Mukherjee of Marcellus Investment tells us why large caps will not sell off over the next 12 months and how small cap valuations are likely to correct in the next year. He also spoke to us about why retail investor money is attracting to small caps. Listen in.
If you take a 12-month view, it's difficult to see why large caps will sell off this point in. If anything, foreign investor flows are highly likely to come in over the next 12 months and lift large caps up, especially the sort of large caps that you and I have discussed over several years. The converse, I think, applies to small caps. I've been talking about several years about how the economy is consolidating. Town after town, city after city that I visit, I'm seeing the same story. Well-run large companies grabbing huge chunks of the economy, consolidating the economy. So small cap companies' profitability has been under pressure for decades now. It's a structural move. As you integrate a country, larger companies become more powerful, they pull away market share. And in that context, where the fundamental support for small caps is not there, I think small cap valuations correcting over a 12-month period are highly likely. The market itself is buoyant. The economy is in very good shape. The macro fundamentals are supportive. As I said, foreign money has started coming back. We'll see more of it. So in that context, retail investor money has got attracted to small caps, which look optically cheap, optically low PE multiples, and modest amounts of liquidity means these stocks are very easy to push up. And that's where you had spirals of low quality stocks going up 200, 300%. And at some stage, a day of reckoning is bound to come for these companies. What I think we will see is even the retail investor, the domestic investor will revert to large caps, and similarly for the foreign investor. The economy, I stress, is in very good shape. That should give the market fundamental support, especially the Nifty 50 and the BSE 100.
All right, time for a very short break. But on the other side of Market IQ, we will be listening in to Dr. Soumya Swaminathan on the ongoing COVID surge. She's part of the task force as well as a top-notch epidemiologist. We'll get a sense of how big this scare is, if at all. So come back after this very short break.
breaking news now. Bandhan Bank approves a transfer of NPAs worth 775.6 crore rupees to asset reconstruction companies. We have Pragati Oberoi joining in with more. Hi, Pragati.
Hi, Pallavi. Yes, you're absolutely right. We just got this update because the company has put forward an exchange filing that it has approved the transfer of NPAs worth 775.6 crore or approximately, let's just say 776 crore rupees to an ARC. Now, this transfer has to do with the housing finance NPA portfolio because the dues that were left, they were over 180 days, so it was high time and it was time for them to be transferred to the ARC. As per the exchange filing and the update that we have with us, the entire bidding process has been done as per the Swiss challenge method as well. And the bank has received a binding bid of 280 crore for the NPA portfolio. Now, we must also remember this is not the first time Bandhan Bank has done this. In December 2022, that was the first time ever back then that Bandhan Bank went for such a step, and back then the writing off of the portfolio was on an outstanding basis for about 8,000 crore rupees, and that particular portfolio was on account of small businesses and agricultural loans as well. So that's all we have for now. As soon as we have more updates, Pallavi, we will bring them back to you.
All right, thank you for that. So Bandhan Bank essentially cleaning house. Not too much reaction on the stock. It's about 1% down, but off its day's lows right now. All right, it's time for an NDTV exclusive. In a conversation with Vishnu Show, my colleague, the former WHO chief scientist Soumya Swaminathan has talked about the new JN1 variant of COVID and its implications for India. Remember, there has been a spike in COVID cases. Some authorities in certain states, at least Karnataka for sure, have now brought back a mask mandate, but only for those who are suffering from comorbidities or are elderly. Listen in to what Dr. Swaminathan said.
What we're seeing now is a surge in this particular variant globally. It's been first detected in August, but over the last couple of weeks, many countries have reported that it's the fastest growing subvariant. And the WHO calls it a variant of interest because it has certain mutations that might make it more transmissible. Now, coming to India, as you mentioned, we've just started increasing the testing. So over the next few days, I think we will see more data coming from many states. Right now, it looks like a few states like Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, perhaps Tamil Nadu, they're reporting an uptick of cases and this high positivity. Now, the positivity rate also depends on who you're testing. And so if you're testing sick people who've been admitted to the hospital with pneumonia, then there are a few possibilities that, and COVID is certainly one of the possibilities or the differential diagnosis. And so you're going to pick up more as you start testing more and more people. And I think at this point of time, probably the testing is going to be limited to people who are sick, who are presenting to the hospital, because there's so many respiratory infections going around, that it's impossible to test every person who has a cough and cold. But this type of strategic testing is very important because it will tell us how much is influenza, how much is COVID, how much is other viruses, because obviously the treatment and management will differ.
Right.
And what the genomic surveillance will then tell us how much of COVID is JN1 and maybe other variants are circulating as well.
All right, some more news coming in today from Parliament, even as the session is on. The suspended opposition lawmakers, whose numbers have now gone up to 143, have been protesting and had a protest march today, in fact, from the old Parliament building to Vijay Chowk. They are demanding that there be a response to why they were all suspended. And remember, the suspension happened when they were questioning the security breach recently in Parliament. Let me go across to my colleague, Sunil Prabhu, who's been tracking the story all morning. Sunil, have those protests now receded? Any breakthrough coming in between the opposition and the Treasury benches?
Well, it was just a token, protest, basically to show that one way or the other, they are very, very categorical and very assertive about the fact that there's been a suspension of democratic values. So that's been something that they wanted to send that message across, a very categorical statement from the opposition. there is a complete breakdown between the opposition as well as the treasury branches, and that's the reason why tomorrow we'll see nationwide protests. Government, of course, carries on with business, as you rightly said. They're passing the Chief Election Commission. The telecom bill is slated for being passage, as well as the criminal law amendments. And this really doesn't augur well for parliamentary democracy. Because if you do it today, suspending
we seem to be
members
facing a little bit of a lag right there. We'll come back on that. Meanwhile, we know that people with physical disabilities or impairments face accessibility issues. The lack of a ramp or a lift, the absence of accessible doorways or toilets creates these issues. But disabilities are not just physical. They can be intellectual or developmental too. Samarth by Hyundai looks at people with such disabilities who end up facing accessibility issues as well. It's just that these are less visible or obvious.
These children have intellectual or developmental disabilities which create limitations in cognitive functioning, social skills and adaptive behavior. This means that tasks most people take for granted can be a massive challenge for these children.
Occupational therapist, she teaches how to tie your shoelaces or pin your, though these small areas, like maybe for another person, what is a big deal? What is big deal? You have to only wear a panty or you have to only buckle your bra. But even small area things, take so much of efforts of parents, individual. How I will teach her that what is if you're wearing a trouser or a jeans, how will you zip it?
Children at the Tamanna Special Education Center are from different levels of the intellectual disability spectrum. Based on their capacity to learn, they are taught functional life skills and multisensory activities in addition to academics. Given that people with intellectual disabilities struggle with communicating and performing practical tasks, better accessibility, whether in the home or in transportation and public spaces, can be created by the use of universal pictograms, simple complete words in signages, and secured, non-slip, well-lit stairs with handrails, amongst other solutions.
एक्टिविटी ऑफ डेली लिविंग, सपोज बच्चों को कपड़े पहनना नहीं आता, ब्रशिंग नहीं आता, फेस वॉश करना नहीं आता अपना. इसी तरह से जैसे कहीं साइनेजेस है, कहीं टॉयलेट लिखा है, मेल फीमेल, इस तरह की साइट वर्ड्स हम बच्चों को सिखाते हैं ताकि उनको कभी भी वो काम आ सके. तो वो सब चीज़ें हम उनको फंक्शनल जैसे कार्ड बना लेते हैं, उनको बार बार वो वर्ड दिखाते हैं पिक्चर के साथ. पहले पिक्चर के साथ दिखाते हैं वर्ड लिखा हुआ, उसके बाद रिमूव कर देते हैं, पिक्चर को फेड आउट कर देते हैं, उसके बाद सिर्फ वर्ड, तो बच्चा वो भी पढ़ लेता है.
However, accessibility is not just a matter of physical spaces. For greater accessibility, awareness and empathy is foremost. Asha brings her niece Ruhi to school every day. She says the biggest barrier that people with intellectual disabilities face is lack of acceptance.
She has echolalia, so she repeats. If she likes something somebody is saying, so she'll repeat it. So people would say कि आप उसको मत लाया करिए walk पे. So I started saying, why not? I mean, she has equal right to the walking space like you.
Perhaps then, what is needed to break down the barriers and create greater accessibility for people with intellectual disabilities is to first address stigmas and perceptions. Because if we don't see them, how will we accept them? And for that, we have to make space for them.